So this is a first read, which means I just go and look at a poem that I've never read before by an author I do not know or do not know very well. So I might be completely off. I don't go back and read it a second time like I would if I were going to teach this. I don't run it through the lens of literary theory. I just read it and see what happens. And like I said, I don't know if it's worthwhile to anyone else. If it's helpful, it really is just a first reading, and I might completely switch it on the second reading. So today, this one is from the Bennington Review. Bennington Review. So, here it is, benningtonreview.org, this one. I just picked this one fairly randomly. The name of the writer drew me. I do not know this writer, but I was drawn toward it, so I'm just going to read it. It's Saturation Number 1 by Ryo Yamaguchi. Sorry, I probably just destroyed your name. That's a beautiful name, but I probably destroyed it in pronunciation. So here we're just going to go through it. I always like to look at the form of a poem before I go through and read it. And I look at, if it's traditionally set up, if it's more playful what it's doing. So, here I'll look at this boxy form. It fairly looks, boxy like a sonnet would. The line numbers are wrong, so I know it's not that. Pile overhead, though, explain jarful. Yeah, there's no specific rhyme scheme jumping out. Here I am sweeping the color dots in a pile, seizure as a point of reference. The crows overheard. Yeah, so no specific line length in the first two, so I'm going to read it as if it's free verse and go with that. Here I am sweeping the colored dots into a pile. I like this first reference, here, as in here in the poem. I'm sweeping colored dots in a pile, or here, a specific place. We're not sure as reader, seizure as a point of reference. Looks like we just went paratactic there and went to a completely different thought going in, so maybe this is a fairly playful style poem, but we'll see. Seizure is a point of reference. I do not have seizures, but I suspect that if you did have a seizure, it would be a point of reference. Or seizure itself as in a seizing of the flow of the line, the flow of meaning here as a point of reference for later on, or just the word seizure as a point of reference in a poem that I could look back to and use it as a point of reference. The crows overhead. Alright. I'm not sure what to do with that yet. It's almost as if here we're at a place. We have sweeping the colored dots into a pile, the crows overhead, bringing down a daylight. As though into the jaw or story one has roughed out to explain why one must practice such erect discomfort. I'm not sure if this one connects to the other lines. Bringing down a daylight. So the crows is bringing down daylight, or the narrator, the I, bringing down a daylight, or just the aspect of bringing down a daylight. That very phrasing is interesting in itself. Bringing down a daylight. The A is the trick, I think, which makes it more fun. Because it's almost as if you're bringing one ray of daylight down instead of just bringing light through the sky down. As though into the jaw, or a story one has roughed out to explain. As into this physical, or into a story, why one must practice such erect discomfort. I'm not sure what the erect discomfort is standing there to bring down the daylight, or just some other erect discomfort, a jar full. This weirdly seems to go pretty well with the bringing down daylight, this jar full of whatever it is. Not nightmares, but a clinging kind of sleep. Does this refer to the rest of this poem? Have we just come out of dream? The light being pulled down, the jar full. It's not a nightmare, but a clinging kind of sleep, a sense of some vast dark terrain, lights wired throughout, but kept off. So there's all these lights wired in this dark terrain that just aren't turned on, like you could see, you could understand it somehow if you could turn them on, but they're not turned on. You're just clinging. this clinging kind of sleep, not a full sleep, not somewhere you can have nightmares, and not somewhere on the edge. It helps to have immediate needs. Is this a narratorial comment, or a comment on this dream state, or just in general? It helps to have immediate needs versus some other needs. Signage, air conditioner, and we seems to be like we could be in the dream state tripping from different things, or just in average life tripping from different things. Signage, air conditioning, void is a peculiar word. Yes, it is a peculiar word, exactly. But to explain that, I'm not sure, but yes, I would say agreed. Like an out-of-place friend. Yes. This reminds me of that great Eugenio Montale poem about you turning and there's the void right behind you, and what do? You keep going, realizing the void is there, or just forget it. Turn around and go and pretend you didn't see it. Someone you've just introduced to the afternoon, the void. It's like something there, which you don't want there, but it's there anyway. Suddenly a pinkness. Well, this is interesting. Suddenly a pinkness into what? Pinkness. Into the body? Into the space? The spaces turn pink, the bodies turn pink. History collapses in the void, I suppose, or in this scene where we're going through so many different ideas, or in this afternoon it collapses because there is nothing but the afternoon. It's very much like dragging the comforter out onto the lawn, which is an interesting act, right? Taking it out of context, putting it somewhere else. You came inside with me, and we have a you and a me here. We had an I in the beginning, so the you is the reader, I suppose. In this case, perhaps. If you came inside with me, you'd swear like I do that my hands glow. If you came inside, it's like an invitation here. To come inside, like come inside the poem, like the very first line, here I am sweeping. Like here is the reference of the poem, and we're thrown in with all of these interesting images to see what's there, to try to figure it out. That's the part I haven't figured out, that my hands glow. I suppose that's what's being given here, but perhaps all of the meandering of the poem is the part I haven't figured out yet. This is a fun little poem. I don't know that I have a single answer for what it means. I might have to come back to it for that. But I like all the images thrown together. This sense of the void, of history collapsing, of an eye, and all of these interesting little images jumping out at us that they act like jumping off points to go somewhere else, to let your mind wander a little bit. So, interesting poem, like I said. Saturation number 1. I would definitely like to read more of this poet's work.